Hi, this is Kim, and this is part of our lecture series on viruses. And I'm just going to talk very briefly about coronaviruses. We are all too familiar with coronaviruses right now as a specific coronavirus is controlling our lives as I speak. This is November 6th, 2020, and the virus is peaking again. So I'm not sure at what point you'll be watching this. Hopefully you are watching this out and about with no more restrictions on our lives and there is a vaccine and everything's good, but we don't know when that's going to happen. So coronaviruses have been around for a long time. This is not the first one. They're a group of viruses that cause disease in animals and in humans. And it's crazy to think that they are found in camels, cats, bats, cows and pigs, and the symptoms are different in some animals than they are in humans. But now we have one that has moved from an animal to humans, and now it can actually go human to human. And that's the big deal. And it is highly infectious because it is airborne. Anytime a virus is airborne, it's easier to catch because obviously we have to breathe, right? Like we can avoid touching surfaces and doing a lot of other things, but we cannot avoid breathing. So that's the problem with airborne viruses. They're named for the crown-like spikes on their surface. And I just want to show you a quick picture of where they get the name coronavirus. Of course, corona means crown, and it's referring to this shape of the spikes on these proteins that are on the surface. It is an RNA virus, a single-stranded RNA virus. So here we have yet another RNA virus that is wreaking havoc on humans. COVID-19 is not the name of the virus. Okay, it's short for coronavirus disease 2019. So here you go, coronavirus disease 19. So that's the official name that the World Health Organization gave to this disease when it was identified. And it was first identified as a new virus that we had not seen in humans before in December of 2019 in Wuhan, China. We are assuming that's where it originated, that we are assuming that it had been around for a while before it was identified as a new virus. Obviously, when people start getting sick like this, you assume it's just a respiratory infection of some sort, and you don't always know that it's something new until people start getting tested. And this is just telling you, this is a quote from the World Health Organization website, just telling you that they did RNA sequencing from an isolated virus from patients who had symptoms of severe pneumonia. And that's when they realized that it was an emerging beta coronavirus that had never been seen before. This is an important term to know, zoonotic. Okay, this means that it came from animals to humans, that it has mutated to the point where it is able to go not just from a non-human animal to a human, but it can also now go human to human. That's a big deal. It's usually a vertebrate, and in this case, they're pretty sure it's bats because they have sequenced the coronavirus in the horseshoe bat, and this appears to be incredibly similar. There is some speculation that there was an intermediate host, the pangolin, and that it went from maybe the bats to the pangolins and then to humans, but nobody knows for sure. There is no proof. In case you want to know what a pangolin is, it's this really cute little guy here. But there is no evidence to support that pangolins were involved. We just don't know at this point. As I mentioned before, it's a positive sense single-stranded RNA virus, and it is airborne, which, as I said, really allows it to be spread through small droplets of saliva in a similar way to cold and influenza. Okay, the difference is we have some degree of immunity for fighting off colds and the flu, because if you're over a certain age, you've most likely been exposed to a lot of different strains of flu and developed some immunity. Of course, we still want to get the flu shot every year because we need immunity to those specific strains of flu that are around that season. And the flu virus mutates rapidly and is different every year, but we do have a small amount of immunity in humans because these viruses have been around for a long time. When a new virus emerges, that can be passed person to person. That's a big deal because nobody has immunity. There's a lot of speculation right now as to whether or not you have immunity after you've been infected and how long that immunity lasts, because this virus is a little different in how it is treated by our immune system and how it affects our immune system. So it's not a typical course of infection where you would develop immunity and now you're protected for quite a period of time. We're not sure if it can be spread on surfaces, but there is some speculation. SARS is a term that stands for severe acute respiratory syndrome, and SARS has been a problem in humans for a while. And there has been a fear for a long time of SARS becoming so widespread that lots of people would die. There have been different SARS viruses in China that have a pretty high mortality rate. Luckily, right now, COVID-19 actually does not have as high a mortality rate as a lot of the prior SARS viruses have. So we all know the common symptoms of COVID-19, just typical flu symptoms, but the difference is that the fever is higher than normal and it lasts for a very long time. And the cough and shortness of breath is more severe, often like that of severe pneumonia. And people can have mild symptoms for about a week and then just really quickly get very, very sick. Another thing that's happening that is really scary is this cytokine storm. Sorry, it's hard to say. Cytokines are chemical messengers that are released by our immune system. This is how our white blood cells communicate with each other and signal other mechanisms to happen as part of our immune response. The problem is when you release too many cytokines, you have this really exaggerated inflammatory response. This is what killed people in the 1918 flu pandemic, because that particular flu virus attacked the lower respiratory system. And the youngest, healthiest people had this really strong inflammatory response because of their strong immune system. And those were the people who were dying, is actually the strongest young people who had this really strong inflammatory response. The inflammatory response includes sending a lot of fluid and blood flow to the area to try to send more white blood cells, to try to flush things out. And people just suffocated. They drowned in their own fluids very quickly. So some of that is happening with this virus. And this exaggerated inflammatory response goes beyond just sending fluid to the lungs. It can actually damage the liver, the blood vessels, the kidneys, parts of the lungs permanently damaged, and can result in the formation of blood clots, which is really, really scary because we're seeing a lot of young people get strokes. So a stroke is when the brain's blood supply is interrupted, usually by a blood clot. And there have been a greater than expected number of younger patients having strokes and even dying from strokes. These are people who had no traditional risk factors for stroke. Also, it's happened in people who have no COVID symptoms or mild COVID symptoms. That is very scary. This is not a typical virus. It is not the same as getting a cold or the flu, despite what people have told you. Okay, it can also impair brain function. There have been a lot of cases of not just loss of smell and taste, but actual numbness, tingling, confusion, delirium, and of course, seizures and stroke, which is not a typical flu or cold virus. Of course, we're working on a vaccine. We still don't know what the answer is. We don't know when we'll have a vaccine. But right now, as of October 2020, there are 321 vaccine candidates in development. So everyone is working on it worldwide. And hopefully, if we don't get a vaccine, we'll have some other type of treatment that is an antiviral that can control the spread of this virus. Right now, as I speak to you on November 6, 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic has already cost an estimated $16 trillion just in the United States, impact to the economy. I know that many of you have been impacted personally, um, either through the tragic loss of someone you care about, someone being very sick and you having to care for them, or losing your job. People have lost their homes, obviously. People have not been able to attend significant life events such as weddings, funerals, births of babies. People are working from home, doing school from home. These are really challenging times, and let's just all hope that this ends very, very soon. But this could be our future if we don't figure out how to get control of these types of viruses. We have overpopulated our environment, and just as any organism that overpopulates its environment, things happen to control the numbers of individuals in that population, and this is one of those things. We are a population of organisms that move around the globe, which is a wonderful thing, but that means we bring our diseases with us and we spread communicable diseases such as this virus. So we're all sick of being at home. Let's get out and do something soon. And hopefully this is coming to an end soon. There's another video that I would like for you to watch on COVID-19 that is not produced by me. And there is a link for that on Canvas. Okay, thanks.